So the right has been playing this game, or even, not even just the right, but people who just believe in, traditional values, basic American values, totally ceded this space, just totally ceded this space and said, oh, it'll correct itself. It's self-correcting. Don't worry. This isn't some big thing. Guess what, folks? It is. So that's why we decided to put this together. They reached out to me and they said, do you want to do something? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what should I write about? And they're like, what's something that you don't like? And I said, communism, right? And they said, well, we just so happens that we have a book that we think that would lend itself to that.
I'm Dave Rubin, and joining me today is a former Navy intelligence officer, the senior editor at Human Events, and the author of the new children's book. I've got it right in my hand right now, The Island of Free Ice Cream. Jack Posobiec, welcome to the Rubin Report.
Dave, I am so excited, and I just can't hide it. We're going to talk all about the fact that there's no such thing as free ice cream today.
I've known you. We met once in person. You've done the show once before, but I know you mostly through Twitter. And if you would have said to me a couple of years ago, you think Jack Posobiec is going to write a children's book? I'm pretty sure I would not have had that on my list. But at this point, where we're at in the world, it's like pretty much anything's possible. This is proof of that, I think.
Yeah, when they reached out to me, so it's with Brave Books. And they have the whole thing up at Brave Books. So it's like Ashley St. Clair and Elizabeth Johnston, and there's some other big names. Actually, I think they just announced it, so I can say this now that Dan Crenshaw is going to be the next one coming out with a book.
Nice.
That was something we were like, don't say it yet. We're still, getting the ink is just getting dry, everything, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, we can announce that now. And what it really is look, when you walk into, and it's a big thing for me too, right? You mentioned a couple of years ago. Well, a couple of years ago, I wasn't a father, right? I didn't have my own kids, right? I wasn't looking at life differently. I was just, it's go, 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 man. Hey, you go back even, 10 years, I'm in the Navy, I'm deploying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm not thinking about that stuff. I'm thinking about me, right? Yeah, right. It's when you're younger, your life is more centered on yourself. That's just how we are. That's human nature. But, as you get older, and then we do have kids and you start thinking being more socially minded, more broadly minded, more, you have more of a widespread outlook on life, and you start to think, well, wait a minute, what about what's going on here? What's going on there? How are we doing this? How are we doing that? And when you walk into one of these, commercial bookstores lately, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, I swear it's like the first book I see, it's always this table that's set out, and it's children's books, and every single one of the authors, their last names is either a Biden, Obama, a Clinton, or a Harris, right? Mina Harris, the niece. And so I'm saying, wow, this is just, it's so politicized, and I don't remember that. I mean, my kids' books were like, the last name was Seuss, like it's just basic,
You mean that old racist?
Right. You can't, right. You can't even do that. I'm learning like one fish, two fish. And now we're talking about all of this really politicized stuff. And so I said, look, there's been this idea on the right that, it's always like, well, the campus crazies will just stay on campus because then they'll go to real life and they'll get mugged by reality, to use the old Buckleyan line, and then they'll stop and they'll go back to normal and everything will be fine, right? Well, that's not what happened. The campus crazies followed into the corporate crazies, the military crazies, the academia crazies, all the crazies, right? Everywhere. And so that's now filtering into where? Into schools, right? Pre-K through 12. And of course, this is happening with CRT, et cetera, et cetera. And the books are a huge part of this. So the right has been playing this game, or even, not even just the right, but people who just believe in, traditional values, basic American values, totally ceded this space, just totally ceded this space and said, oh, it'll correct itself. It's self-correcting. Don't worry. This isn't some big thing. Guess what, folks? It is. So that's why we decided to put this together. They reached out to me and they said, do you want to do something? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what should I write about? And they're like, what's something that you don't like? And I said, communism, right? And they said, well, we just so happens that we have a book that we think that would lend itself to that. So we kind of worked together on the writing of it. And it's actually got, and this is the one thing I said to them, I was like, look, I don't want to do one of those big preachy things where it's some story and then all of a sudden, Jack Posobiec walks over and is like, well, kids, let's talk today about the virtues of the free market and Milton Friedman and Ayn Rand. It's like, no, like I don't want to do that stuff, right? So they showed me the storyboards on it, and I said, this is actually really cool. Like, this is a book There's characters, they're like on an island, there's a marketplace, but then, some wolves show up and they say, hey, come to our island. We've got free ice cream, and this guy's trying to.
Not only, I'm going to illustrate the island here.
Oh,
There's
you
a
got the
giant,
poster?
it comes
the poster
with a
too.
big map. I think I got it right here.
Oh my gosh,
this.
yeah, look at this. Right, so the way
We'll,
this
we'll put up a still so that I'm not so foldy here.
I know, right? So the way it works is with the whole series, and there's 12 in the first saga, there's going to be more sagas, so it's like you get one a month. And then each one of the books corresponds with one of those circles, and the different places that are on that map are different stories, and they all kind of interlock. I mean, you can read them out of order, I think makes sense as long as it's in the saga, but each story kind of feeds into the other one. It's sort of a shared, like Marvel Universe kind of idea. But, for kids that are reading it, and, my son's 3, so I showed him some of the storyboards and he's like, oh, cool, sheep and wolves. Like he kind of knows that wolves are like bad and sheep are good, but he doesn't really have, ice, and he knows ice cream is good. He gets that, right?
Naturally.
Yeah, that's pretty basic. But he doesn't understand so much the total plots yet, but he can at least get the action of it, right? So they go to the island of the wolves, and guess what? Turn out, spoiler alert, right? It's not very good on the island of free ice cream. It's actually quite bad, and you can't get out. And there's like this Berlin Wall surrounding it, so it's like a Cuba, East Germany, China kind of place. And anyway, so that's kind of the story, but there's a lot of action to it, and it's interesting. And then you get to talk about some of these ideas. And at the end, there is a little bit more of like that whole educator piece where, we're working with like homeschool groups, we're working with religious groups, we're looking with a lot of people who just want to check out of the system and say, look, we are not on board with where you guys are going, but we need to find something to replace all of this woke junk with. And I said, look, that's where Brave Books comes in. So it's actually really cool. And you can start to have those discussions like, okay, I wish things were free too, right? Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't it be awesome to live in the world of Star Trek: The Next Generation where there's a replicator and you can walk over and, I've got my Earl Grey tea, right? But we don't live in that world. And so maybe when somebody, and it's just a basic idea, right? That when someone offers you something that seems too good to be true, it probably is.
It probably is. Now, the real question is, at the libraries, will this book be recommended by the drag queens during Drag Queen Story Hour? Are they going to be handing out this book?
I might be able to sneak it in. I don't know. Maybe while they're getting all the attention, we'll just be running around in the back, like throwing them all over the place.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.